Who knows what the butterfly effect of this forum might be here in China and indeed across the world. We can't tell what that will be. But you may have started something here which in 10, 15 years back, in 10 or 15 years time, you will look back on and say, that was such an important moment in which something emerged that is now a very significant element in our global story.
It's clear that a systemized methodology needs to be devised to effectively and efficiently rebuild after disaster.
我们需要把很多方面的知识汇聚到一起，交汇、融合、提升，再变成新的智力的成果，去传播到更大范围，甚至全世界去。
我们就宣布，这一届我们就是汉王论坛的开始届啊！这掌声呢啊，是给了我们力量。我觉得至少是给了我这个德阳的市长的力量。
You were able to achieve the kind of political support that we witnessed from the mayor and from the other government officials that were present. That's quite extraordinary.
It represents the first step of moving from Dayang as a disaster to a way of actually creating an influence on the world.
具有云功能的信息平台，灾后重建教育培训中心，
生态社区推广示范中心，最佳实践数据库。
SDMC Sustainable Development Media Center 绿色生态建设示范园，还有健康管理中心和太阳能示范区、风能区、水能区。最重要的是产业园区。
We now have to be together and make the future work.
Acknowledge equal and civilization.
我们可以在比较短的时间内，提供一些救援物质上的帮助。
有识之士能够给我们一些点拨，给我们一些指引，共守天道，同心同德。
把这个汉王论坛，把它搞成功，把它做大、做强、做好。
我们居安思危，防患未然，任重而道远。
不仅仅关系到社会稳定问题、社会和谐问题，涉及到道德问题和心理问题，同时它也是一个经济问题。
And I'm sure that Europe and China and other partners around the world in our global village are willing and happy to work together. We just have to make it happen.
We are very committed to deal with the sustainable development and will contribute more in the sustainable development community for future.
就希望能有这么一个国际的培训中心在汉望落成。
灾难的主题公园，而且我们这个论坛就在以后在这个灾难的主题公园里面开。
It's all about water, and it's all about weather. So therefore, there is a tremendous experience that can be worked with. There's a lot of technology in China that is needed in the region I work with.
I think the Hanwang Forum is a great opportunity to talk about values, to discuss these things amongst people from different countries and also people from different walks of life.
We need to take the responsibility for the future generations to create a better planet. I fully support the idea behind the Hanwang initiative.
Hanwang 2012年全球防灾救灾及可持续发展国际论坛开幕。
感谢联合国有关机构和世界各国各方面的公益团体、非政府组织、研究机构、企业在防御灾害领域中的重要举措，
得到了联合国计划开发署正式定为战略合作项目。
We are a fossil fuel world economy, and yet we cannot go on this way.
Nature will not let us do it. Even if we deny it, it won't matter. Our current trajectory is unsustainable.
The Taoist tradition of living in harmony with nature is everything that we are now looking for and need to lead us through the next generation of creativity so that we all have a hope of sharing this beautiful planet of ours.
我们是参加首届汉王论坛的代表，倡议并支持建立汉王论坛永久性国际交流与合作平台。我相信，地球上每一个人都会积极地为社会的安宁和美好负起责任。
第一个呢是一个会议中心，围绕在这个会议中心的建筑群的周遭呢，它是一个生态农场，它是一个示范的一个生活社区，它的是一个绿建筑的，也是防震建筑的，它有最好的通讯的一个网络连接系统，有最好的医疗的这种传讯系统等等，都在这个示范生活区里面，欢迎全世界各地所有的有关于防灾、救灾跟可持续发展的产业，都能够集中在这个研发基地上来发挥他们的智慧。
所以我们得出的结论是要行动。那么就是一个是加快建设绿色建筑的社区，第二呢是对既有的建筑进行节能改造。
What we'd like to see is between the Hanwang forums in China, a Hanwang forum in Africa. The objectives are to facilitate investment relationships between China and Africa, and eventually between all parts of the world and Africa.
要在3年的时间内，把汉王论坛会议中心变成一个国际化的研究中心。
It's only now that I really understand how the +1 art and culture actually reflects in all the other sectors, and it's really an eye-opener for me.
This gathering that has been assembled here is so rich with experience and energy and ability, skill, and we need to roll up our sleeves in order to join together to produce some very tangible projects.
In order to set the standards of green, inclusive and better living communities, as an architect, as a master planner and as a cradle-to-cradle consultant, I really hope to be able to put my little contribution and try to set future rules.
我们要在我们的新型社区中加入更多对未来人类可持续发展的思考和人类新型家园模式上的赏识。
The coming together of different philosophies, different religions, different spiritualities, different art and different cultures of coming together to fuse a new Hanwang way.
The Hanwang vision is to increase the global capacity for disaster management and build a pathway towards an ethical economy and a civilization that is harmonious, resilient, just and fair for all.
凤凰涅槃，浴火重生。抗击5.12特大地震，为人类抗灾救灾史提供了鲜活的案例。
因为西部是大美的，西部资源是丰富的，但是西部的生态环境是非常之脆弱的。
Where we don't just build homes, we build civil society committed to the economy, environment, stakeholder, and as an institution,
we will stand firm that there must be future for our children and children yet unborn.
The Hanwang initiative seems clearly to me to have the right timing to be a platform and inspiration, not only for Europe, but for the whole world. This will demand hard work from all of us. But we can do it.
你需要去营造以及维持一个自然的生态环境，比如说我们使用绿肥，我们在种植一些覆盖作物，或者我们实施轮作，或者是我们从事一些 agroforestry 做这个农业的森林，那这样子的话就可以达到生物多样性的一种效果。
Maybe you can put also, as you did with agriculture, a center for renewable energy. So you can train your people in your country about renewable energy, which is most important for future.
而在城镇结构的部分呢，我们建议了它是一个自给自足的一个双核的城市，有都市核有农业核。
I think for a happy human society, I would say it's culture, culture, culture. When we build a community, when we build a site or a museum, it has to be the reflection of the traditions and the values and the roots. That's what inspires people.
通过创新项目拉动我们的创意产业。
If we accept our environment and if we accept people who live in the environment in terms of sharing with them, associating ourselves in the way of living.
我们现在很多地方发生灾难以后，总是过分的强调灾害的强力，而很少反思我们自己的脆弱和应对能力。
Fascinating prospect as it doesn't exist anywhere else in the world. The Hanwang Forum, their concept, their vision of creating this national emergency management center.
Not only for China, but for Africa, but for the future generation.
And we're really looking forward to like the next concrete steps which this forum is going to take, and we're willing to support.
Come to China to help China save the world.
世界的未来人人有责。参加第2届汉望论坛的代表们支持共同创建一个永久性的国际灾难管理平台，它的后续与进程值得我们关注与期待。
四川省政府很重视汉望论坛的作用，今年已经把该论坛纳入中国西部国际博览会，成为该博览会的专项活动之一。
我们可以让冰城在东南亚扮演一个重要的角色，配合这个中国以及来自全世界各地的朋友，进一步深入了解与沟通，再借这论坛一起建立一个紧密的合作，共同落实汉望论坛的核心这个价值。
What I'm proposing here is the idea of setting up an international bank for the reconstruction of Bhutan. And this new bank would be a little bit like the World Bank. It wouldn't be making loans for development, it would be making loans and grants to clean up the environment, clean up lakes, to clean up rivers, perhaps to reforest parts of the world, in general, to clean up and reconstruct the world in a much more healthy way for human beings and for all other species as well. So this new international bank would be totally independent, would be non-profit. It would also be a place to broker agreements. So it would be a place where countries could come, sit down with each other and say, I will clean up this if you agree to clean up that. So China is open to take charge, to initiate this, and to invite these other large countries, the United States and the European Union, to join with China in this new effort. When you start an organization like this, you're proposing something, say from China, that goes beyond the narrow interests of China. If China suggests such a bank, China will be reaching out and exerting leadership far beyond its own borders. This will be right across the world. And that sort of leadership is a deeper leadership than political leadership or economic leadership. That sort of leadership is moral leadership. It's almost spiritual leadership. Operate with absolute complete integrity, not necessarily be labeled green, but this would be beyond being green. This would be a very hard-nosed financial institution. It's highly independent, and it would be very much interested in results. It could possibly even have its own currency. So these are agreements for financing, agreements for projects, agreements that are made between countries or even between regions, and it finances also renewable technologies and new ways of doing things. And this is all very much in line with how the Hanwang Forum thinks.
In fact, the challenge ahead of us is to write a code that embodies resilience rather than embodying the kind of destruction that our creation of code to date has written. Now think about these two systems, the code that we write as human beings and the code that nature writes. There's something very fundamentally different about them. One code writes very, very, very slowly. And one code, our human code, writes blindingly fast by comparison. We can change the earth in a few decades. In just a few thousand years, human beings have already transformed the earth. So the pattern for writing a more resilient code is right in front of our eyes. That is, it is in nature, and in fact, it is in our own bodies. All we have to do is open our eyes and open our hearts to see what we can learn from nature about resilience.
I'd like us all to become storytellers in the Hanwang Forum to see if we can solve some of the world's bigger problems today. But the same principles for working locally need to apply to how we work globally. We need to support these partnerships with the leadership. We need to take risks. We need to be prepared to fail more quickly so that we can deploy things that are more likely to work.
Meaning, what we really need is inside ourselves to prepare ourselves for a future that's very much unknown. I think what we need above all is a shift in our attitude. We should have a more profound respect that the world is unknowable, a little bit ahead, that we need to respect the entire world. We need to respect the idea that there are other organisms, viruses and so on, that are trying to cohabit with us, perhaps at our expense. So I think what's terribly important is to shift our attitude from one of exploitation of the world to one of deep inner respect for everything in the world. 我非常同意。今天我们主题是谈道德与环境。其实这个新的问题，这是我们中国文化最强调的问题。我们儒家、道家、释家三家都是以人心、人性为主要。中国文化就是讲怎么静心安心。They say that if you want a better world, a more ethical world, a world with integrity, it starts from inside and going inside your mind. How would that be affected? How would that be done practically?
现在开始要推动一个叫物质文明跟精神文明的平衡，我觉得这是极为智慧的一句话。很多人推动论坛，在这里无非就是在默默在做这个耕耘的工作。在中国一开始走上这个路，大家就会去思维，改造世界不容易，我觉得也是最重要的，从自己开始。和教授讲，从自己的内心做起。如果有很多人，有5%的人开始做这个功课，开始自己把自己的心弄明白了，这个世界就变了。
The disaster prevention and sustainable development related topics that have been chosen extend to Africa is a very important topic that needs actually to be discussed, not only in China, but in Africa. China and Tanzania are celebrating 50 years of diplomatic relationship. Tanzania has been chosen as the first country in Africa where the first Sustainable Development Forum and Investment Cooperation Seminar is to be launched in Africa. I welcome you to hold this forum into my country. You're all welcome. I hope to see you there. 谢谢。
让中非共享创新性的水问题的解决方案，我们也可以协助中国政府和非洲政府进行水问题的对话。同时，我们也能为中国企业进入非洲的市场提供技术援助。所以我们对中国、对非洲都有很多的这个校友，肯定是这些校友能够为中非的合作发挥巨大的作用。
技术层面上可以完全满足干细胞转化红细胞的一个技术条件，血浆是一个非常大的急需的抢救品。
I believe that China's rich background of ethnic dress could provide the fresh approach that world fashion is needed.
绿色建筑这些材料，你不使用。你拆掉，你可以重复使用，这个是对地球保护的一个很努力的目标，这就是我们核心的依据。
People want to work and they want to live in a healthy environment and they want to play. And when you provide all three of them, you get a happy eco community.
Let us